Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. I do want to start with some college basketball, and I do want to start with, frankly, what is a topic that had been floating around for a while. It was something that was kind of public but hadn't really become official, and on Monday it did become official, and that is that the NCAA Tournament, the event that we know and love, that big bracket with 68 teams, it is not going to be played in the traditional sense. It's not going to be played in a north, south, east, west kind of mindset or geography or whatever. Instead, it is all going to be centralized in the greater Indianapolis area, not just in Indianapolis, but we're going to have a few games in Bloomington. We're going to have a few games in West Lafayette where Purdue is. So basically, the whole NCAA tournament is going to be in more or less one place. Everybody, all 68 teams are going to come to one site. Everybody will stay there, and you'll basically stay until you get knocked out of the tournament, until we crown one champion on April 5th. And let me say this, first of all, I think it was the right move by the NCAA. And before I get into why, I just want to refresh for people who are new to the show or just found me or lost me and then found me and now you found me again. I think everyone kind of knows where I stand on all this COVID stuff. I think it's serious. I think it's concerning. But I also think that we have to get on with our lives and we have to move forward. And I am a person that has fought hard for college sports, fought hard to kind of keep the infrastructure in place. I fought hard for college football back in August and September. I fought hard for college basketball in November and December and January when Coach K was trying to cancel everything. And I think it's for many, many, many reasons. One, obviously, look, selfishly, I like watching these games, right? All of you do. There was 20 million people that watched the Ohio State-Clemson game the other day. But it's not really about me. It's not really about you. Frankly, it is about those players. And I know some people say, oh, it's just sports. It doesn't matter. I saw that absurd headline that my alma mater, UConn, quote-unquote, won the national championship because they were the only ones, quote-unquote, brave enough to not play a season. No. UConn didn't play a season because they would have lost more money playing football than not playing football. They didn't want to do that, and that is why UConn did not play. It was not some sort of bravery thing. So I have never believed that we need to cancel sports. I actually think it's the opposite. I think for the good of the players' mental health, their physical health, moving forward as young men, I think it is great that we're playing these games, safely of course, but playing them, because I do think that it's important. One, first of all, let these kids play, right? The basketball players had their entire season ripped away from them 2 days before the NCAA tournament last year. College football, most of these guys are not going to be playing in the NFL, certainly not for a very long time, and playing college football is about as good as it gets. You add in the mental stuff, you add in the fact that if they weren't playing, they'd be at home with mom and dad, potentially getting them sick, less supervised, no medical. It's the right thing to play sports. But I think two things can be true. Big theme of this week of the show, by the way. Two things can be true. I think it's great that we figured out a way to get games in, but I also do think that the NCAA made the right decision by putting these games all in one place in Indianapolis. And the reason why is very simple. We've all watched the NCAA tournament. We all love the NCAA tournament, but it doesn't make sense in the current climate that we're living in to have the NCAA tournament the way that we traditionally do, where you got 4 teams fly to Dayton on one day, then they fly somewhere else, then if they win, you got teams flying to potentially 3 different sites, 3 different cities in 3 different weeks. Love the NCAA tournament, but in this climate, it just doesn't make very much sense because even by March, these players aren't going to be vaccinated. They're not going to be out of harm's way with this virus, not out of harm's way in terms of liability if something were to happen. And so because of it, the NCAA, I thought, made actually a very smart decision. And again, I go back to something I said in September where I actually give the powers that be in college basketball some credit here. Yes, the NCAA needs an NCAA tournament to pay the bills to keep the lights on. Even Coach K has said that we cannot cancel the NCAA tournament 2 years in a row. But I think from a broader perspective, I also think that the NCAA kind of looked at the mistakes of college football over the last 6 months and said, we are not going to make the same mistakes. And so if you look at what college football did wrong, straight up through, by the way, this college football playoff where the Rose Bowl was slated to be played in Pasadena until about 5 days before the actual game, I think college basketball looked, saw, observed, and said, you know what? we cannot make the same mistakes that college football did. Let's go ahead. Let's get everything set up in Indianapolis. Let's plug all the holes here. Let's get a plan in place so we're not in scramble mode like football is. So that's the plan. Everything will be played in Indianapolis. And let's get into what a little bit of what it'll look like, because I think that's the next question I think most people want to know, right? You guys don't have time to look into every detail. That's my job. That's what I'm here for. It's why I do this show, to get behind to get under the dirt under the fingernails. And first of all, I think it's going to be really cool. NCAA tournament is set for 6 different sites, including Lucas Oil Stadium, which is where the Indianapolis Colts play, Bankers Life Fieldhouse, where the Indiana Pacers play, but also some venues that we've never seen college basketball NCAA tournaments before. Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Butler plays, where very famously the movie Hoosiers was shot. Hinkle Fieldhouse will be taking part in this NCAA tournament. Assembly Hall, where Indiana plays their games. NCAA tournament site this year. You might not be an IU fan, but it's kind of cool that we're going to play NCAA tournament games at Assembly Hall. Same with Mackey Arena. In terms of the setup, by the way, also Lucas Oil Stadium apparently is going to have 2 courts in it at once. We won't get the cool John Calipari idea of playing 2 games at one time, which would be awesome. That's for safety, that's for cleanup, that's for this, that's for that. But the broader point is it's just going to be cool, and it's going to be different. And in this year, so much is changing, so much is new. I'm just excited that we're getting a tournament. In terms of everything else that you need to know, first of all, as far as it appears to be, we're going to stick with a 68-team bracket. One, you don't have to worry about that absurd 346-team bracket that Coach K proposed a few months ago. That was absurd, never happened. That's a good thing. Beyond that, there was also talk, I think Joe Lunardi at one point put out the idea of having 80 teams in the NCAA tournament, 8-0. That is not going to happen. It's going to be 68 teams, and it's going to look and feel like a normal NCAA tournament for the most part. Now, what I would say is it appears as though because of travel, because of testing, because of quarantining, it might not be that traditional Thursday through Sunday start with the 2 playing games before. It looks like as though I saw Seth Davis put this out there on Twitter. His thought was that those play-in games might get pushed back to Thursday. Then the tournament starts on Saturday after Selection Sunday. We play Saturday to Tuesday, then pick up the NCAA tournament as it normally is, Thursday to Sunday, Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and then the Final Four the following Saturday and Monday. But the broader point being that we are, in fact, going to play an NCAA tournament on the timeline that it normally is, even if the games don't go off exactly at the same time that they normally would. In terms of everything else, I think that's really it. It's crazy. It's different. But again, it is the right decision. And again, I do give the NCAA credit for making this decision when they did, because I think we're getting to be go time. I mean, we're talking about it's already the middle of January right now. And I think when you look at where we are and where we're headed, this was a decision that had to be made. Now, I will say I think there's some other stuff that needs to get discussed. I think we got to figure out if we're even going to do conference tournaments or not. I've seen mixed things about it. My understanding is, frankly, and I hate to say this because I actually like championship week more than the NCAA tournament itself, but I have heard the possibility that we might not do championship week the way that we normally do because conference tournaments probably don't make sense in this current climate, right? I mean, if you think about it at its most basic level, why are you going to have 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 teams fly into one place when, first of all, probably 6 or 7 of them can't win it, right? Like, no disrespect in the ACC, but why are you going to have Boston College fly in to play Virginia when Boston College has no chance of winning that game and all they could possibly do is get Virginia sick? So I bring all this up to just say I think the idea of conference tournaments, when you add in the fact that, one, all it is another barrier to getting to the NCAA tournament, 2, we are going to kind of know who are the elite teams by that point, and certainly who are the best teams in each individual conference. And 3, they're not going to make any money, right? Because at the very most, I would think that you wouldn't have more than 15, 20% capacity. I just don't see a lot of these conference tournaments getting played. So that's another story for another day, but I did want to open with the NCAA tournament because I do think that they ultimately made the right decision. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different, but this is different times. Hopefully, knock on wood, this is the last time that we ever have to do anything like this. Hopefully, by the summer, the vaccine is rolled out. Not trying to get political, I'm just saying. And we can get back to some semblance of normalcy into baseball season, into next football season. And by the 2022 NCAA tournament, we see more of a traditional deal. But again, this is where we're at, and we will see what happens going forward. But I do think this was the right decision from the NCAA.